Phonology 1, the sound patterns of language. Okay, let's look at English plural morphemes here. Okay, English plural morpheme was an inflectional morpheme. Remember, you add a z sound at the end of a word to make a noun plural. And if you look at this list, half of the work is actually done for you because these are divided into columns. You see some similarities in the items in each column. D is way out. Yeah, that's completely irregular pluralization, so you can just ignore those. They're not really relevant when it comes to phonological rules. Let's look at A, B, and C. When you say cabs as opposed to caps, buses, whoa, the Z sound comes out differently. So let's figure out what affects that and in what environment those different sounds occur. Okay, so there are three sounds here: z, s, or az. Remember schwa? It's a kind of a very neutral, lazy kind of sound, az. But there's that additional vowel. Okay, they seem to occur. Z seems to occur after cab, cad, bag, love. Okay, and s occurs after cap, cat, back, cuff, faith. Okay, and us, that additional vowel thing, occurs after bus, um, bush, buzz, garage. Okay, are you beginning to see some similarities here? Okay, one word that I need to define is allomorph. We talked about morphemes. Allomorphs are members of a family of morphemes. You wouldn't say that these, simply because they sound different, you wouldn't say they belong to a different morpheme. They're all the same morpheme because they all indicate the plural noun, but somehow they are varied. So they're all members of the same family. They're called allomorphs. Okay, so we separated out the environments. Let's come up with some kind of a generalization about these environments so that we can come up with some rules. Okay, how about the very final sound that seems to be affecting what follows? So we separated them out. Whoa, look at this one. There's a whole bunch of different sounds and even vowels. Okay, so that's gonna be difficult to generalize. Over here, ooh, I see something. Do you? Okay, I'm gonna leave you there, and I see something here too. Okay, what do these things have in common? Okay, I'm gonna give you the answers. Let's start with the narrowest environment. After sibilant segments, we talked about sibilants maybe in the previous chapter. Sibilant sounds are like s, s, z, those snaky sounds. Sibilants types of sounds, right? They all have that in common. Okay, so somehow you insert a vowel when you have a sibilant ending to a noun. Okay, okay, so we eliminated sibilants. Now we're eliminating only voiceless sounds. These are all voiceless, non-sibilants. And then the rest seems to get the z sound. Okay, that's pretty good. So of these three, we need to determine what's going to be the default morpheme. And then we need to determine which rules apply to that default sound so that they come out differently in the end. Okay, some of the questions to ask is which sound covers the most environments, different environments. That would be Z. So let's make that the default sound. And then the rules start with the ones that are the easiest to predict, which has the narrowest environment. That'd be us, sibilant segments. So let's come up with the rules. Rule number 1 is insert a schwa before the plural morpheme z, z, when a regular noun ends in a sibilant, giving a uz sound, as in brushes. Okay, one other thing that I need to point out to you is that, with around the phonetic symbols, we put angled brackets. That means phonetic symbols. But forward slashes indicate phonemic symbols. Okay, we're going to talk about phonemic symbols a little bit later, but let me just briefly tell you that phonemic symbols, that's the mental representation in the native speaker's brain of a sound. So when I'm pluralizing a noun, I think I'm just adding a z sound to every word, but that's not true. When the words actually, the pluralized words actually come out at the end of the process, they come out in three different ways. But the native speaker isn't thinking about the three different ways. The native speaker is only thinking about the inflectional morpheme z. Okay, so that's the idea of a phonemic symbol. Okay, rule number 2 is change the plural morpheme to z, to morpheme z to a voiceless sound only when they're preceded by a voiceless sound. That makes sense. Voiceless and voiceless, they go together. So let's look at this. This is a formal representation of the application of these two rules. At the speaker's mental level, I'm thinking as a speaker of English, okay, I've got bus, bud, bug, and I'm just pluralizing them, and I don't think anything of it. So that's the basic representation at the phonemic level. Bus, bud, bug, and z. That's what I'm thinking about. But in our brain and in our the muscles in the mouth and everything, what really gets really calculated really fast is rule number 1. So because there's a sibilant sound, you insert a schwa, right? And then once you insert a schwa, rule number 2 doesn't apply because there is no consonant immediately preceding z. So you come up with buses, which is the right sound for this. But if you look at but and z, okay, there is no sibilant sound here, so rule number 1 doesn't apply. So you continue with this, and then there's no, oh yeah, there is a voiceless sound. So z becomes s. So in the end, you have buts, which is the right sound. How about this one? Bug and pluralizing it. Okay? There's no sibilant sound like ch, sh, s, stuff like that. So rule number 1 doesn't apply. Rule number 2 doesn't apply because there's no voiceless sound. It's a voice sound. So none of these rules apply, and in the end, you come up with the bugs, which is the right sound. So why is it so important to sequence these rules? Okay, let's try to apply them in a reverse order. Look at this one, buses. Okay, let's do rule number 2 first, which is the voicing, non-voicing thing. So there's a voiceless sound, so let's change it to s. And then this is still a sibilant. Let's add a schwa. In the end, you come up with buses. Buses. Nobody says buses, so that means it's ungrammatical. So that means if you apply rule number 2 first, then you come up with an illegal form. Therefore, the rules must be sequenced this way. Okay, let's look at English past tense morpheme, which is de. Okay, so there are 3 sets here. Let's look at this. Gloat becomes gloated. Ooh, do you notice that schwa addition? Raid becomes raided. Schwa. Grab, grab, no schwa. Budu. Okay, I want you to pay attention to the final 2 sounds. Hug, hugged. Phase, phased. Roam, roamed. How about here? Reap, reaped. Whoa, that sounds different. Poke, poked. Kiss, kissed. Patch, patched. Okay, I'm enunciating so they sound a little odd. But notice that all the endings here are de, 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 but over here, and here too, de, with the exception of schwa insertion, of course. But over here, all the do sounds, become t, t, t. Are you beginning to see a pattern? I am. Okay. Rule number 1. Insert the schwa before the past tense morpheme when a regular verb ends in a non-nasal alveolar stop, giving an odd. Okay, alveolar stop sounds. Give me all three, I think, in English. Alveolar stop. It's right behind your upper teeth. Okay, put your tongue there and make a stop sound. So that's t, d. Okay, where are you, cursor? Okay, t, d, and non-nasal. So that eliminates n. So when you have t and d sounds, that's true. Gloat, raid, you add a schwa. Okay, to do, you add a schwa. The second rule is change the past tense morpheme, and here the default should be do because that's in the biggest, it covers most areas. Okay, it doesn't have vowels here, but let's say spray, sprayed, that would belong here. So the default value is do, but it becomes a to when a voiceless sound precedes it. That kind of makes sense. To is voiceless, um, and so that comes after a voiceless sound, as in poked, kissed, right? Okay. Are you thoroughly confused? Okay, let's look at another example here of rule application. It's a little different here. Nasalization of English vowels. Okay, in with consonants, nasalization is hugely important because what makes the sound to, do, nu different, especially to and nu, and do and nu, is nasalization. But in vowels, nasalization is not really that important. Rather, they are allophones. Allophones are variations of the same phonetic sound. They don't make, um, they don't change the meaning of the word. They don't all of a sudden create a different word. So here, look at, okay, what you need to do is you need to pinch your nose with two fingers, okay? And then say bean, 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 bean. Do you feel a little nasalization going on? But when you say, okay, pinch your nose and say bead, bead, there's nothing going on there because the air is not going through your nasal cavity. Okay, let's try again. Roam, roam. Feel something? When you say robe, robe, nothing's happening. It's very crucial that you try this. So, to generalize, could you tell? Right before nasal sounds, the vowels become nasalized, but not if the sounds are not nasal sounds. So look at this nasalization. Okay, by the way, this symbol, this thing is called tilde. That's the nasalization. So mean, lame, bang. These are all nasalized because they're followed by nasal sounds, right? And if you don't have that condition and pronounce the vowel nasalized like b, lay, bay, or bead, lace, bade. Okay, yes, I sound like that actress who nasalizes everything. Um, but they're not the typical pronunciation. Or conversely, if you go no nasalization in front of nasal sounds like, oh, I don't know if I can even do it. Bean, bean, lame, bang, bean. I can't get rid of it. I cannot get rid of the nasalization. So, would you say then the environments where the nasal vowels occur is predictable? Yes, they are predictable. So you can say this E sound is this E sound and this E sound. Oral E and nasal E belong to the same family of phones. but they only occur in different environments, right? So they're allophones of the same sound. Okay. Okay, phonemes. Okay, phonemes are mental or even abstract representations of sounds in the native speaker's brains. So when I make certain sounds, it's not referring to the physical sound that comes out of my mouth, but the sound that I think I'm making. Okay, one important concept that you need to understand when you tease out the phonemes of a language is this concept called minimal pairs. In this case, it's a minimal set. Okay, the minimal pairs are usually two words. Let's look at the first two. Two words, beat and bit. They are identical. If you look at the phonetic transcriptions here, they're identical except in one sound, right? So they form a minimal pair. And you know what minimal pairs can tell us? The minimal pairs can tell us that in fact this distinguishing sound, the distinguishing sounds are two different phonemes in that language. And this is hugely important if you encounter a language that you're not familiar with and when you have to tease out the phonemes. But over here, b and t are in every word, and the only distinguishing characteristics are the vowel sounds in the middle. So, what conclusion can you draw from this minimal sets? Not minimal pairs, but minimal sets? That all of these vowel sounds are distinctly phonemic differences because they make the if you change them, if you cannot replace them and keep the same meaning, right? If you say beat as opposed to bait, the meaning completely changes. You cannot say, "Oh, I just said beat." No, I meant bait. You can't do that. The meaning, I mean, can you imagine if you say boot and boat and you think they mean the same thing? It doesn't happen. So in English, all these vowels are different phonemes. Okay, another concept that you need to understand is complementary distribution. Okay, let's go back to the oral nasal vowels in English. Okay, in the final position, the vowels as in like bay, bay, pinch your nose, bay. There's nothing going through the nasal cavity, so that's an oral vowel. How about before a nasal consonant, like bean, 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 nasal cavity, right? So before a nasal consonant, the vowel becomes nasalized. How about an oral consonant such as d? How about bead, bead? It stays oral. So only in this environment, English vowels become nasalized. Predictable? Yes. Okay, that kind of thing is called complementary distribution. So oral and nasal vowels in English are in complementary distribution. And since where they're going to occur is predictable, they're not phonemically different. So let me write this and this are not phonemically different. They're phonetically different, but not phonemically different. Ah and ah, as in oh, I can't think of anything. Let's try this one. As in bat, bang as in bang. They are not phonemically different. They're phonetically different. So, are you making a distinction between phonemic and phonetic distributions? I hope you are. Okay, distinctive features of phonemes. Let's look at the bilabial consonants. P, b, m, three sounds, right? What makes p and b different? They're identical in all these regards, in these features, except voicing, right? Voicing, remember you put your fingers on your vocal cords and see if the vocal cords vibrate. P, no vibration. B, vibration, right? Okay, how about b and m? They're identical only in one regard. Nasalization, right? Same thing. Pinch your nose and say boo, moo. You can feel the difference, right? So these are the features that make phonemic distinctions of sounds. So P is a bundle of these features. B is a bundle of these features. M is a bundle of these features. So you can, these phonemic symbols, you can almost think of them as a shorthand for all a list of features. Okay, let's look at another list. Same thing here. So once again, the phonetic feature, these features are distinctive when the plus value in one word contrasts with the minus value in another word. So there's the, so labial, okay? In terms of labial, boo and do are different because boo is labial, lips are involved. Do is alveolar ridge and there's no lips involved. So plus minus, if you say bad, dad, there's a meaning distinction, right? So that's what distinctive feature is all about. Nasal sounds in consonants too. There, it's a distinctive feature. Okay, let's look at some distinctive feature versus non-distinctive features. Let's look at English. We talked about the nasal and oral. Okay, unlike in consonants, in vowels, the nasalization is a predictable feature, and they're in oral vowels and nasal vowels are in complementary distribution. So it's not a distinctive feature in English. But in Akan, it's a language spoken in Ghana. When you say ka, it means to bite. But if you say ka, it means speak. So it's hugely important to make this distinction. So nasalization, whether the vowel is, so this is a separate phoneme. This is a separate phoneme. Fee come from, but if you say fee, dirty. So it's really, I mean, when you want to say pull, you don't want to end up saying den, right? So in these things are not across the languages, they're different. So in English, the nasal oral vowel distinction is not a distinctive feature, but in this Ghanaian language, um, the nasal vowels and oral vowels are phonemically different. So nasalization is a distinctive feature. Another example. In English, let's go here. Okay, how about in the syllable initial position? I have told you that p becomes extra aspirated. You hold up a little tissue paper and it will blow when you say pill, pill, pill. And that's that little diacritic that expresses that extra aspiration, puff of air, pill, pill. But the same sound, the pill, if it immediately follows in a consonant cluster situation, spill, spill, the tissue paper won't move. Still, skill, the same thing. Par, tar, car, the tissue paper should move, but when you say spar, star, scar, doesn't move. Predictable? Yes. Predictable and redundant, therefore non-distinctive, right? So that's why you don't see aspiration in the distinctive feature list. But in Thai, if you say pa, I guess long vowel, very long, pa is forest. But if you do it, I just added an aspiration because I'm an English speaker here. Okay, let's try to say it without aspiration. Pa, I guess closer to that. But if you say pa, it means to split. Tam, to pound, but if you say tam, to do, very different. So the in Thai, if you were to make a phonetic chart, you would list the aspiration as a distinguishing feature, a distinctive feature. Okay, phonetic. So to summarize, phonetic representation of utterances is what speakers know about the pronunciation of sounds, and it's the rather physical representation. Phonemic representation, on the other hand, is what speakers know about the patterning of the sounds. It's rather mental. It's the speaker's notion of a sound. Okay, natural classes of sounds. Okay, let's look at these two hypothetical rules. One is nasalized vowels before p, I, z. Nasalized vowels before n, which sounds, this is all over the place, but these are all nasal sounds. This seems more natural, right? That's why I can say a lot of the phonological rules apply to natural classes of sounds and they don't just happen randomly. And it makes perfect sense because nasalization is easier right before nasalization, right? It's a type of an assimilation rule. So once again, the features are further grouped into natural classes. So there's the distinctive feature for English vowels. It's a binary representation. Consonants. Okay, I don't expect you to memorize all these things, but I want you to be able to understand what these mean. Because on the test, I will give you the charts, but unless you know what this means, you won't be able to apply these.